So ratio is a comparison of quantities. And we're going to look at the ratio right now of circles and squares. So you can see we got 3 circles and 2 squares, and it asks us first for the ratio of squares to circles. So you got to be very important with ratios because the order does matter. Now this is what's called a part-to-part ratio because part of the shapes are squares and part of them are circles. We're not talking about the total number of shapes or up there. So the ratio of squares to circles would be 2 squares to 3 circles. Now we can write that in a couple different ways. Typically it's going to be written with the word 2, T-O, where we have 2 squares to 3 circles, or we could write it with a colon as 2 colon 3, but it's still said 2 to 3. Now we have another type of ratio below that's talking about a part to whole ratio, and typically part to whole ratios are going to be written as a fraction. So if we are doing the ratio of squares to total shapes, well, we have 2 squares and we have 5 total shapes there. So we would write it as 2 over 5, or we could say 2/5 of the shapes are squares. Now we're going to look next at a special type of ratio, and that's going to be a rate. So a rate is a special type of ratio where we're comparing different quantities or different units, whereas a ratio is comparing the same type of quantities. So in this rate, we are comparing miles to hours. So what we're given is that someone traveled 120 miles in 3 hours. And often with rates, we want to scale them down to what's called a unit rate, and that would be how much per one. So in this case, it would be, well, how many miles are they traveling per 1 hour? So when we solve this proportion that we have up here, which are just equivalent ratios, or in this case, equivalent rates, when we take it down to 1, there are a couple ways we can do it. One way is we could just do 120 divided by 3 and get 40 miles per hour. Or another way is we can scale it from left to right, and we could see what do we have to multiply 3 hours by to get 1 hour, and that would be 1/3 the amount of time. So we can multiply 120 times 1/3, and that would give us 40 miles. All right, this next one, what we're going to look at is cans of corn. So we have 8 cans of corn that cost $10. And it says at this rate, how much would only 5 cans cost? So we got to be real careful with rates where we put the units. Typically, when you are given money, that's going to be on top because you want to find the cost per something, the cost per ounce, or the cost per can in this case. So I'm going to set up a proportion. I just got 2 equivalent fractions or ratios, and I'm going to put the money on top from the rate they gave me. It is $10, and then what am I getting with that $10? I'm getting 8 cans. Now, if I wanted to find how much it costs for 1 can, I could just divide those, but this one is asking for 5 cans. Well, let's use some number sense. We know it's going to be under $10 because we can get 8 cans with 10 bucks. So with 5 cans, it's going to be a little over half of $10. So our answer might be around $5 or $6, somewhere in that range. So to solve this one, as I was mentioning, I could scale it down to a unit rate and do 10 divided by 8 and get it's $1.25 for each can. And then I could scale that up to 5 cans by multiplying $1.25 by 5, and that would end up being $6.25 for those 5 cans. Another approach that I could take is I could have figured out what I'm multiplying 8 by to get 5, which is going to be 5/8 or 0.625, and then I could multiply 10 by that fraction of 5/8 or 0.625 to get $6.25 for 5 cans, which was close to our estimate of $6. All right. our last one we're going to look at here, it says 1 pound of cherries is on sale for $3.98. How much would 2.5 pounds of cherries cost? So again, we're going to set up our proportion. This time we were given the unit rate of $3.98, and that is for 1 pound of cherries. And we want to know how much 2.5 pounds of cherries would cost. Again, we got money on top. So on this one, we have the unit rate. It's going to be easy to scale that up to 2.5 pounds. That's 2.5 times as many pounds of cherries. So we can do $3.98 times 2.5, and we're going to get $9.95 for 2.5 pounds of cherries.